6:56, so we should 4 minutes before we should get started.
Well, maybe I'll tell a story.
Okay, tell a story.
I never imagined I'd be an energy auditor. I've worked in marketing and communications for 40 years, but was always a sustainability geek. Joined a lot of voluntary organizations and helped build a renewable energy cooperative and built a passive house and electrified my farmhouse and realized that I was very tired of marketing and communications, although I love it in this respect of doing some education, but wanted to work full time in sustainability and do community outreach. So my auditor work solves that. I get community outreach through visiting homeowners and helping them with their energy reduction and GHG reduction. And then I get my exercise by running around homes, carrying lots of equipment. And it's wonderful because I feel like I'm making a difference. So there you
Now,
go.
how did you electrify your home?
How did I?
Did
Little
you
by
use solar?
little.
Sorry?
Little by little, I electrified. First I took out my oil furnace and got heat pumps,
Yeah.
and then I always had an electric furnace, domestic hot water. But then you just work on finding things that use the least amount of electricity, the type of equipment that you can have that reduces. And you can learn a lot from people that live off grid. There's 4 families that I helped in Sprucedale get more solar panels through the rebate program, and they are wizards at finding ways to live with the least amount of electric use.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's platforms out there called Watt Genie or a Watt calculator, and you can look up any appliance and find out what wattage it uses and be smart about your purchases. It's really very amazing. I find it very interesting. And I did not include this in the deck, and I should have really. You can stay on 100 amps on your panel and use heat pumps, no problem.
Wow.
You can add your EV plug-in. I did it. I have a farmhouse with 3 apartments, 3 kitchens, 3 ovens, 2 dryers, EV plug-in, all of it, 100 amp.
Interesting.
Because you know what? You'll never use all those things at the same time.
And I
But
realize this is about heat pumps and not solar, but these people are finding solars working even in this part of the world.
oh yeah, these families in Sprucedale are living on their solar. Yeah, they're off grid completely. Wonderful young families supporting each other in this technology. They're smart people. I love it. Yeah. But then when I said I love making yogurt in my Instapot, the mom in the house said, "Oh, how many watts does an Instapot use?" And I said, "Oh, I don't even know." Like, because they have to know.
Yeah.
I think of
Pay attention.
Instapots as saving energy.
Yeah, but she thought of it as blowing the budget. And so there was another woman who wanted to use her Instapot, and her husband said, "No, no, no, he's the energy Nazi." He said, "No, no, not allowed." And I said, "Oh, but you can use your Instapot in the summer when there's sun is shining and you have endless energy.
Yes.
Not in the winter."
Okay. We've got just had the number here, about 50 people online now. Yeah. And Audrey did introduce herself a bit before we reached 7 o'clock, but I will just take this time to introduce Audrey Bayens. I met her as an energy auditor when she came to our house to help us figure out what we were going to do and to apply for the Greener Homes Grant and Loan Program. We found we had a lot of common interests, and I learned that she was interested in talking to other people, and I found that she was very educational at the time for us. So one thing led to another, and we conceived this webinar to tell you a bit about what heat pumps are and how they work, And that they really work in Muskoka. If any of you are on Facebook, you've seen the hundreds of people who want to say they don't, but there's real live people who say they do and that they have them now. So that's great. And at the end, there'll be some time for question and answers. I will start with questions that have been already entered into the chat. So I'll be monitoring the chat and consolidating questions that seem similar. And then if we have additional time, we'll have more conversational, but it's a little bit difficult as the numbers get high. We had 140 or so people register. Didn't know if they'd all show up, of course, but with that, I think I'll just turn it over to you, Audrey. Whoop.
Shall I introduce myself then? Yeah? Okay. My name is Audrey Bayens, and I am a registered NRCan energy auditor. I've been working on the home auditing for the Greener Homes Grant for quite some time. And I also work with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities as an advisor to municipal staff on their net zero building projects. And I like to be an educator and a volunteer for sustainable building projects. So a well-rounded, busy life. I enjoy it a lot. I enjoy meeting all of the homeowners and helping further the education around things like heat pumps and building science, which is my new passion since becoming an energy auditor, even more so. So I'm going to share my screen. This takes a minute to get technology going here. I will try to be quick. So, and I have been spotlighted, I understand, from a little message that came on. So I am on the edge of the screen, I hope. I don't see that, but you guys do. Everything good? Thumbs up, Paul? All right, cool.
Thumbs up.
All right. Okay, so let's get started. We are here to learn about heat pumps. And at first I was going to just say, how do heat pumps work? Because everyone's curious. So at first I was going to just launch right into how do heat pumps work. And then I realized something is more important, like why are heat pumps important is really critical for everyone to understand. So, we've always cooled our homes with electricity to run our air conditioners, which we never questioned. We've had them for decades. But we now, feel electrically heating our homes is expensive because of the old technology. If you think about it, electric furnace, baseboards, the cost was astronomical. So everybody then switched to natural gas and other fossil fuels. But nowadays, burning a fossil fuel in your home is the old technology. It is phasing out. It's bad for your health. Those fumes it can escape into your home. So that's number one. It's unhealthy for our planet as well. So that's another big one. And we want to be able to use clean, renewable energy, which means we need to electrify. So heat pumps have been worked on, the last decade with great enthusiasm because it is an electrical way to heat and cool your home without using fossil fuels. That's bottom line. So why are Canadians making the switch? If you follow things globally, we are in the trend. This is a global trend that's happening, and all countries are working on electrifying their energy systems so that we can reach our climate change targets and have a healthier planet and healthier people and not be consuming fossil fuels the way we are now. So there's the bottom line. Heat pumps are important to the world, and we're getting on board in Canada. All right, the mystery. This is the mystery of the heat pump. Everyone finds it unbelievable that you can get heat out of cold air. So I'm going to show you how you get heat out of cold air. You can see here the two differences between winter and summer. So you know, your air conditioner, you've always trusted your air conditioner. You know it gave you cool air. No one ever questioned that. So let's spin it in reverse. The hot air that you were expelling outside with your air conditioner, you reverse it, and now you're putting that hot air inside your home. It's quite straightforward. But let's go deeper. Let's keep going on this. Number one, I wanted to clarify from the beginning that there are two kinds of heat pumps, so you're not confused. They both require a condenser outside or a compressor outside the unit. The unit outside is the same for both kinds of heat pumps. The central ductwork version basically feeds into your existing ductwork. And it's quite simple to install, very simple to install. If you have no ductwork, or you have a section of your house that your ductwork is not reaching, or you're putting on an addition and you don't want to install ductwork, you can go to the mini splits, which hang on the wall. I'm sure you've all seen them. I just want to make sure that we're really clear on heat pumps being available for ducted and unducted homes. All right. How does it work? Well, basic building science, which I fell in love with when I became an energy auditor. And you know, we're working with nature here. Nature wants to allow equalization of temperatures. That's what nature wants. So now we're cooperating with nature. We're using nature to our highest benefit, and we are creating heat pump technology through thermal dynamics. A good example, you have hot coffee in a cold cup. Your cold cup gets warmer, your coffee gets cooler, and then it's just the right temperature when you drink it. So this is where there is a transfer of heat to cold and cold to heat. Nature wants to equalize those temperatures. That's its job. So we're talking about basic science equals heat pump technology. Any process in a natural or nature flow will always want to go from it'll want to transfer so that they're both the same. It's hot to cold, it's cold to hot, it's wet to dry, it's dry to wet. So you will always find that happening in nature. So how do we actually transfer that heat into our homes, or that cool into our homes? So when we have a energy exchange or a heat exchanger, it runs through a loop, which becomes the heat exchanger. The loop holds refrigerant within it. And when it's in the hot area, it releases the heat based on nature. When it's in the cold area, it absorbs heat. So it's quite simple when you think about it. You don't need to know much more than that. And the longer the tubing is, because you see the squiggles on the back of your fridge, you know, the longer the tubing is, the more time it has to expel or absorb. There's one of the key factors. So here's an example. Your fridge and your air conditioner. We've had them for, you know, a very long time. We trust them. We don't question them. We don't ask, how does this technology work? We just know it works. So we trust it. So basically, it takes a cold and it creates a cold environment by expelling the heat from that environment into another environment. So your fridge, the coils on the back of your fridge, are throwing off heat. That keeps the interior of your fridge cool because it's taking the heat out. And with your air conditioner, basically it's doing the same thing, except it's throwing the heat outside and keeping, so your house is a giant fridge. That makes sense? Same technology, exactly the same technology. So now maybe, you know, you're getting a little more comfortable with the technology because you're familiar with it. You don't need to worry. You don't need to question it. All right, now the big question. Why is a cold climate heat pump successful in very cold weather? That's another thing that people find it very hard to believe. It's -10 outside, and my heat pump, as I hold my hand up to my, you know, my ductwork or my mini split is giving me heat. How can that possibly be? Well, once again, let's think about our thermodynamic basic science. If your refrigerant gets colder than the temperature outside, it continues to absorb any heat that's in that cold air. Okay, I'll say it one more time. Lower the temperature of the refrigerant fluid so it's lower than the outside temperature, and it will attract heat because it's colder than the temperature outside. So it finds any heat in that cold air and absorbs it. And then it expels it into your home. All right. So next question. How can we say that cold climate heat pumps are 400% efficient, which they are? They give you 4 units of heat for every 1 unit of energy used. And so that's very, very hard to believe. There are reports now that are coming out that are proving it with data. We had to wait, you know, we had to wait for a couple of winters to go by and get data from homeowners and equipment specialists, but we are proving this now. So one of the things that's amazing about this, it's the new cold winter weather refrigerants. They have the ability, these special refrigerants, they have the ability to go lower in their freezing point and higher in their boiling point than a traditional heat pump refrigerant ever could do that before. So that's why the technology has changed. It's the chemistry of the refrigerant that has improved to such a high degree. The next piece of the efficiency there is the compressor design. They have just refined them over time, and they've reduced the required energy for the operation, and that has also improved their durability. They're not working as hard. They are able to run longer and be more efficient. So I want you to just think about running, let's say, you know, you have a kitchen where if you click on your kettle and you click on your toaster at the same time and you blow a breaker. I mean, everyone's experienced that, right? And that's because those are elements that are heating up, just like an oven element heats up. And that's why your oven is running at 220. You're heating an element up, and that takes an incredible amount of energy. So heating with an element uses a lot of energy. Now think about a heat pump. A heat pump runs a fan and a pump. So you don't go blowing breakers when you plug in a fan, because the motors that we have these days for fans are extremely efficient. And so now we have pumps and fan motors that are very efficient and use very little electricity. When I installed my heat pump after I took out my oil furnace, I kept waiting for my electricity to build a jump because I was spending a fortune on oil. And you know, it didn't. It barely moved, and I was so impressed. And I've heard the same thing from other homeowners that are getting their heat pumps installed. It's so surprising. So the next piece that's also improved the efficiency is the variable compressors. So they can run at a very low speed in moderate weather, and then they can switch to very high speeds at extreme temperatures. So that's where the cold climate piece comes in. These compressors can run at a speed that's collecting a lot of heat out of the air because they can increase their speed. So they know they're smart technology, and they know just the right amount of energy to keep your indoor space comfortable, whether it's heating or cooling. So it can run at many speeds. So one of the things that I've heard again and again from homeowners when I go back to see how they're doing with their heat pump install is they say they love the comfort of the heat pump because the temperature doesn't fluctuate. Like your gas furnace will go on and heat the place up, and then it'll go off and it'll cool it down a little. Then it'll go on, right? And number one, you're hearing it go on and off all the time. Number two, you're hot, you're cold, you're hot, you're cold. Whereas the heat pump is more comparable to a radiator system. It does take longer to heat your home up to the right level. You can't come home, turn on your heat pump, and have the temperature completely change to the right. If you're trying to bring it up, 10 degrees or something like that, you've been away at the cottage or you've gone on a holiday and you want to bring it up 10 degrees, it's going to take time. It's going to take more like comparable to a radiator of a few hours. And I find just leaving them at the same temperature all the time is the best bet to stay steady and comfortable. So there's a little bit about the heat pump. Well, there we go. So this is a study that came out recently, January 24th, and done in partnership with Ontario Clean Air Alliance. And what they're showing in this report, and it's like 25 pages. So I just grabbed this one snapshot, and this page I've also given to Paul and Arlie to pass on to everyone that's participating. But basically, here's a few facts that they cover in this new report. So fact number one, cold climate heat pumps can keep your home warm even when it's very cold outside. There is a myth that they cannot do that, but it's not true. Modern heat pump systems can keep your home 100% warm and cozy 100% of the time, even on the coldest days, and they can work in older homes as well. Now, they have to be properly sized, and that's the job of your HVAC contractor. Your HVAC contractor has to understand the heat loss of your house, and the heat loss of your house is dependent on the quality of your windows, the insulation you have in your walls, and how much air leakage you have, and the insulation in your attic. And those things are considered your envelope. So the more your envelope is secured against the exterior environment, the smaller size heat pump you can get. I hope that makes sense to everybody. And so your HVAC contractor also understands your region and what the average temperature is in your region. And then they base the size of your heat pump on the average temperature of your region and the heat loss of your house. And that's how it's calculated. So let me just scroll down here from my notes. So I also just want to add one little thing. I'm on LinkedIn, and there are a lot of professionals on LinkedIn, and I follow posts about heat pumps. And I have had quite a few people on the East Coast in upper US and in Ottawa and in Edmonton post that they have no backup heat for their heat pump and they're just fine. You can install electric backup in your heat pump, but often you won't need it. And I mean, look at the temperature outside today. Things are changing, right? So we might not get that many cold days in the winter like we used to. And also, fun fact, Finland, Norway, and Sweden have very cold climates, and they have the highest rate of cold climate heat pump adoption in the world. It's something like 70%. And they're succeeding. So we can watch them and see how to do it. So fact number two, is there are a lot of different brands of cold climate heat pumps. Some have great performance at low temperatures, and so you do have to choose the right brand. Be careful for, the lower quality heat pumps that might be less expensive. They may not do the job as well. So I've a few of the brands that include the better low performance temperature performance are things like Bosch and Carrier, Daikin, Fujitsu, GE, Lennox, Mitsubishi, Move Air, Panasonic, and Trane. So those are the ones listed as trusted brands for low temperature cold climate heat pumps in this report done by Heather McDermott. So make sure that your local installer understands the difference between the brands if you're having one installed. Fact number 3, it might feel really cold outside, but mostly in Ontario, the temperatures don't really get that cold. It's surprising. If you average out the number of days that's very cold, it's not significant. It's very small, and it's shrinking every year with climate change. So you can compare that to the way EVs are being adopted. Some people have huge range anxiety, sorry. And they worry about getting an EV. It's kind of the same with people being concerned about cold climate heat pumps. It's going to take time for trust to develop and for people to lose their anxiety about that situation. So, and then fact number 4, that heat pumps are popular in cold regions for good reasons, because the cost of heating fuel is high, and we're looking for ways not to have energy poverty. I know some households that have to choose between their warmth and their groceries, and that's not a good situation to be in. We need to find ways to make heating your home less expensive, and that's very important. And not only that, we need healthy homes without fossil fuel emissions in them as well. So there you go. All those good reasons. So now let's talk about some proof in the pudding here. I have a testimonial here from Leslie Hasty. She's a Huntsville homeowner. And I did an audit for her because she's installing solar panels. And the year previously, she had installed a heat pump to replace her 18-year-old propane furnace. And she had no air conditioning. So here's the bonus. You're buying one piece of equipment, you're getting heating and cooling, instead of buying a new furnace and then a new air conditioner. So you're getting both. You're getting the benefit of added air conditioning if you're leaving your propane because your furnace is at end of life. If you have to buy new equipment, it makes sense to buy a piece of equipment that does both functionalities. So number 1, she got air conditioning. She was really happy about that. Number 2, she didn't have to worry about future carbon taxes, and as a benefit, she then would receive increased carbon incentive payments. So we have to consider that. That is our future. And now she's installing solar panels to support the stability of her electricity pricing, because when you install solar and you do net metering, you're not buying kilowatts anymore, you're trading kilowatts. So you're future-proofing against higher electricity costs. And the quote is there. I'll read it so that you can hear it. Ian and I both feel that the general comfort level with the heat pump is far better than it was with the furnace, more consistent and uniform. It creates like an ambience in the air, is what she said to me. Even though the ducts are exactly the same as when she had her furnace, the heat pump doesn't let the heat drop down too far. It continuously runs and continuously keeps your house warm. And they found that they can set the thermostat lower to achieve the same heat. And they love it that it's quiet. And for those of us with mini splits, the air comes down, from higher up because you've got your head on the ceiling. When I stand in front of my mini split, it feels like fresh air blowing on me. Like there's no smell to it. It's beautiful. I love it. I certainly wouldn't stand in front of my register that way, my heat register. So that's a big bonus. So here's the savings that she gave me. She gave me proof from her bills on hydro and propane. And so basically she uses propane for other things like her I think her stove or her can't remember what else she was using it for, but she still has a small propane bill. But you can see the difference in the charts, right? So mostly propane, a little bit of hydro. Now mostly hydro, a little bit of propane. So over the 20 months that she calculated through her bills, she saved $2,295. If I divide that by 20 months, it's $114.75 per month. Now, I know for a fact in speaking with other homeowners that if you're on oil, you'll save even more because oil is not as efficient and it's more expensive. So there's very good reason to get off oil and get off propane. Very good reason. You will save money and you'll feel healthier. Oh, I have a homeowner testimonial here. Now, when I shared my screen, I'm trying to remember if I clicked on that button that said share your sound. I guess we're going to find out. If I'm not sharing my sound properly, then I will stop sharing my screen and then reshare my screen. So give me a thumbs up if you can hear this video. You hear it? No.
Should be better if you let it run.
You let it run?
Yeah, let it run.
My name is Keith Burrows. I live in a semi-detached house in the west end of.
Thumbs up if you hear it.
It's good.
It was
Is it
good.
good? Is it loud enough?
Yes.
Okay.
Toronto that was built in 1912. We installed a ducted cold climate heat pump last winter to replace an aging furnace and a really old air conditioner. And we added insulation to the attic and the flat roof at the same time. It really wasn't invasive. There's an air handler that replaced our existing furnace, and the air handler integrated right with our existing ducts. So the installation was really quite straightforward. We've been much more comfortable than we were with the gas furnace. The gas furnace would really provide like an inconsistent heat where it would be really warm when it kicked on and then quite cold when it shut off. The heat pump provides a more consistent heat, almost washing the inside of the house with warm air. So that's been a big improvement. It's also quieter inside than the furnace was. It runs at a lower fan speed, so it's almost like just quiet background noise, which was something that was unexpected for us, but really been a nice improvement. Overall, we're much happier with the heat pump than we were with the furnace.
Audrey, you've got 5 minutes.
Don't wait till the middle of winter and your furnace dies to start thinking about a heat pump project. It really requires careful planning. So I highly recommend starting with an EnerGuide audit, get a sense of how your home is performing, and look for opportunities to improve the envelope as part of the heat pump installation. The technology is proven, we know it works. It's really a matter of making sure that the installation is done correctly and the equipment is sized correctly. Heat pumps work just fine in old homes, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
There you go. Nope. All right, I am near the end here. This is my last slide. This is my sales pitch. Why not join the global movement? Across the globe, heat pump sales have increased by 11% in 2022. And it's driven by, partly by policy and incentives and energy pressures from Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Again, that huge deal. Like we don't want to be vulnerable. We need to get off fossil fuels if we can. And for Europe, There was a 40% increase in heat pump sales as a result of these trends, particularly Scandinavian nations, and also now trending in the US with their Inflation Reduction Act. It's really accelerating things considerably. So there we go. I made it on time. Look at that. Now we can open up for questions, and I see all kinds of things in the chat, and
I have
Arlie,
some questions here. Yeah, do you want to stop sharing your screen and we can,
okay, let me
okay.
here.
So
Okay,
we have a question, well, the question we just came in about geothermal heat pumps as instead of
mhm.
air source. Can you speak a bit about that? How appropriate it is for Muskoka and so forth, or is that an area you don't venture into?
Well, geothermal is actually more efficient than air source heat pumps. The difficulty with geothermal is it's quite expensive to drill vertically. And the other option is to lay loops in a field. So if you're a farmer, you're very lucky to be able to install at a lower cost. I would imagine in Muskoka there's a lot of rock, so drilling vertically may not be the answer. And the only other solution I've seen used is to put your loops into a pond. So there's a few options there. It's more expensive than getting a heat pump, for sure. Probably double the price, but more efficient. It's all about capital. And it's all about the space you have around your home or the type of soil you have. Yeah. I don't know that it's worth it for the extra efficiency. If you want to, like, I don't know what it costs to drill into rock, but I think it's pretty expensive.
You're
mean-
right, many of us would hit solid granite.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some wouldn't, but many would.
A geosystem costs double. Yeah, for the install. I don't know if it's double the efficiency. I don't think it is. It is more efficient, but not double. Now, the interesting fun fact here is that geo energy plants are coming into play now because of the technology that has been learned through fracking, basically, and drilling. So the drilling technology has gotten so good now that you can drill down and horizontally very deep. But now if you use it for geo, you can create power plants that are consistently giving you energy. So it's the next big up and coming energy plant,
I've
consistent.
heard of some neighborhoods that are doing that too. So
Mhm.
neighbors get together and so that's another piece. So someone has said that they have an older house with radiators powered by gas. And what would be how would you do the cold climate heat pump in that situation?
And that is something that people are struggling with. Air to water heat pump technology is getting better. We're not quite there yet. We can't reach the same temperatures as a boiler fueled by fossil fuels. So there's a couple of things you can do. I've done it myself. When I electrified my farmhouse, I decided I liked radiators and I did a radiant floor. But what I did was I got a very large domestic hot water tank and I put in a heat exchanger and I run that tank on quite a high temperature and it keeps my house quite warm. I share it with my domestic water, so it's what you call a combi system. And the only downside that happened was in the winter, the radiators would kind of suck the heat out of the domestic water. And people were saying, oh, my shower is not as hot as I like it to be. So I just put in a secondary hot water tank for the winter, which can bump up the temperature for the domestic water. But that's one way to get around the fact that you don't want to use fossil fuels as a boiler. You can use a hot water tank and just don't expect the heat to be as high. So boilers will run at about 180 degrees with a gas boiler. A hot water tank will run at about 145 or 50.
So the other choice they would have would be to not use the ducts. They don't have ducts, so but to just install mini splits and an outdoor duct unit. As many of us who didn't have ducts have done that.
Yes, absolutely. And what I advise people to do then is to learn to use your radiators as zone heating. Hopefully you've got the knobs on your radiators that allow you to turn them down or up. Put in the mini splits in your common areas, your kitchen, your living room, your family room, you know, those areas that are a little bit bigger, where you spend a lot of time during the day, where you want to be really comfortable. Your bedroom, you could turn down the heat and keep your radiator in the bedroom, because mini splits like open concept areas. The air needs to travel around, and it's more successful with an open concept space. So keep your radiators in your bedrooms. You're not going to use them much because you might be one cooler when you sleep, and you might not spend your day in your bedroom. So you're not going to use as much fossil fuel or gas.
We have a question here. Would we still need to use air filters and humidifiers?
You will find that an air source heat pump doesn't dry out the air, because if you think about it, you're burning a fuel in your basement with your gas furnace. It's drying out your house because you're burning. There's a fire burning in your house. So when you switch to a heat pump, unlikely you need a humidifier anymore.
So we have a request to talk about the need for backups if they're not used frequently, and does it really have to be gas?
No, it does not have to be gas. You can get an electric backup in your heat pump air handler. Rarely do you use it. I know some people that put them in as a precaution, but it's a different breaker on your panel, and you can just shut that breaker off. If you get a really cold day and it's not keeping up, flip the breaker on. But basically, you don't need to risk having that electric heat coil come on and jump your hydro costs. So, you know, it's totally up to the homeowner. And a lot depends on the house. Like, let's be honest about this. If you have a house that has all kinds of leaks in it, and there's drafts going through your house, sucking the heat out of your house, and your windows are very old, and you don't have any attic insulation, that heat pump's going to have to work very hard to keep your house warm in very cold temperatures. So in that situation, if you can't spend the money fixing your building envelope up to reduce that heat loss, you probably should keep your gas furnace until you can find the way to fix the envelope. And I'll tell you what I did, and I have a century farmhouse, and I have tenants. I did my heat pumps about 7 years ago, so it was before everybody had faith in them, right? And I knew I had to replace my oil. You know, my insurance wouldn't insure me anymore. So what I did is I took one of the colder days, a week in February, and I shut off my furnace, and I gave everyone space heaters, and I said, try plugging in the space heaters, and let's see how many breakers we blow, and if you're going to be warm enough just plugging in a space heater. And we succeeded with no furnace and space heaters. And then I knew, okay, we would be fine on the coldest day of the year because we would have our heat pump, and we might only top it up a tiny bit with a space heater. And we were completely successful. So.
Can you talk a bit about the difference then if you have a hybrid? You didn't actually mention the hybrid furnace with heat pump, and the difference in terms of the way the backup heat works in that, as opposed to if you're backing up with a separate, you know, like you say, a space heater, or as we have.
Right. Okay, so if you replace your furnace with a full-on heat pump system, they put an electric coil, I mean, somewhat like your blow dryer, into the air handler. And that's your backup electric. Bottom line, it's an electric coil that
Right.
heats. It's an element. If you keep your gas, you just keep your gas furnace the way it is. They put a coil into your air handler at the top of your furnace. And then on your thermostat, you can choose the temperature where you want your gas to come on. So you can say to the thermostat, I want my gas furnace to come on at -10. But some people will say, I don't want it to come on until -20. And then it might only come on 3 days a year. Who knows? So it's very good if you do decide to do the dual system. Number one, you're not replacing your whole furnace. You're using the fan from your fan system. Your blower system is from your existing furnace, but you're actually using your heat pump 98% of the time. But you're still paying your natural gas delivery bill, service charge, all those things. You're still paying for the privilege of being hooked up to gas. How's that? Does that help?
Well, yes, and from what I understand from talking to other people, another difference is that when you have the two connected in one system, it shuts off the heat pump when it turns on, at least in some of them, when it turns on the gas. So that if you've set it at -4, which was this one person who made comments on Facebook that his switched over at -4, he didn't realize that it was a adjustable thing. The installer had set it that way. So it's important to realize that if you go with that, it's settable and you can start low and then move it up if it isn't comfortable for your family. But since it turns off the heat pump, you lose some of the advantage of having the heat pump do some of it while the room heaters do the rest.
Yeah, I just think there's a reason for that. It might damage the equipment, for instance. But the interesting thing would be that, gas furnaces have, a 12 to 15 year lifespan. Is that if you had a furnace that wasn't at its lifespan, let's say it's 8 years old, you could do a combo, start to trust your heat pump, see how you're doing, and then when it comes to end of life, you can ditch it.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm just seeing the other piece of the question, or do we still have to use air filters and humidifiers, was the air filters.
Yes, you still need an air filter. It's the same.
It's built into my mini splits though.
Yeah, and the mini splits are nice because you remove it, you wash it, and you put it back. Simple. And washing them and cleaning them is essential because you can double the heat coming out of it by washing it. If it's clogged with lint and there's no heat or cool coming out, you're like, that's not working. It's not hot enough, but it's because you haven't cleaned the filter. I've experienced that personally.
And do you know anything about where anybody would be requiring a backup system, or the individual who's with us now, who also sent us the note earlier saying that they're being told that their new build that they outfitted with heat pumps is required to have baseboard heaters? Is that common in the building code, or?
Well, this is where it's going to take municipality building departments a little while to catch up on building code. There's a type 1 heat system and a type 2. They are not yet classifying heat pumps as a type 1 system, which is frustrating.
So this is what people mean when they say it's not primary, is because it's a technicality of the way it's written in the legal, because it hasn't.
In the building code.
Yeah.
So, I mean, go ahead and install one baseboard to satisfy that. Put in one baseboard heater and say, there's my primary heating, but I'm never going to turn it on. I don't know. Like, to me, that's the only way to get around it, really. It's like people,
Sometimes you can just ask for an exception too, but you like to go to council or whatever, they start to educate people.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite honestly, doing a deputation to council, if you're a climate action group, to try and lobby them to understand the research is coming out now. It's proven. Like we need to catch up for sure.
Can I add in a point to that? I was the one that asked the question. And we have a new build out on Windermere Road in Muskoka Lakes. It was permitted, it had a heat loss summary, everything. And then after we got the spray foam done and everything else, they came back and said they wanted continuous installation on the entire envelope. So we're basically at R40 now. on the installation, and then came in and said they wanted a individual heating in each room. Now it's an open concept container build, and so we've got radiant heating in 2 of the 4 bathrooms. The 2 other bathrooms are not finished yet. And we have a baseboard heater out in the mudroom in the carport. But they've come in and they've said they now want baseboards in every room, thermostat controlled. And we said our solution to this for the 2 days a year, given our climatic data, that it could go below -28, which we pretty well had a couple weeks ago. We had no problems.
No
Right
problem.
now, 3 of our 5 heat pumps, the zonals, because they're mini splits, are not even on.
Yeah, it's
And
because your building envelope is so fantastic.
That's right, but the
Congratulations.
thing is, they've come back and said, put these baseboards in, or we're not gonna consider it a single family dwelling. You have to sign off on a 3-season declaration, which basically will make us homeless, and adding an additional cost after the fact, after the drywall, the spray foam, the electrical, we're done. We're done. And saying now, so it's basically gonna cost us almost $10,000. The estimate is to redo the wiring and put in a heat pump or baseboards in each room. It's absolutely ludicrous. Meanwhile, we've got our political entities are out there saying, we're pushing heat pumps, but like you said, the municipality is lagging, and they are the primary point of building in our jurisdictions, and for them to be not up to speed, lagging in public policy, and then forcing folks who are just trying to put a roof over their kids' heads post-COVID and having to sell the house because of it, in a serious situation. And so we're sitting here now, trying to figure out at the end of the build, not much money left, none left in the hole, and they've thrown us yet another curveball 8 months after they gave us the pass.
Yes, yes, yes. And you can push back. You can push back. Number one, okay, I'll try to keep it really brief, but feel free to contact me afterward. I'll keep it brief because I had problems with my municipality around something. And the fact was they came to me after the fact and added another layer. And I said to them, you should have told me that in the beginning. Now you're causing me stress, and that's not fair. And pushback on that. Second note, my husband built a CLT, cross-laminated timber, which is new construction. It's a new technique. It's not new in Europe. It's new here, right? He built it in Toronto, and the Toronto municipality, like the building department in Toronto, told him that he had to drywall the interior of his wood walls because they weren't fireproof. And according to code, he had to drywall it, whereas they are fireproof, and it's proven they're fireproof. And he spent a couple of $1,000s on a letter from a lawyer to the building department, and it went away. So I would encourage you to get testimonials from research and get letters from people that are experts in heat pumps and things like that, and push back. But I don't want to take up any more bandwidth on this, but you're welcome to contact me and talk more if you like. But I think you can push back. I do. I believe you can.
Thank you, and we will. We'll get in contact. Thank you.
Somebody's got to break the ice. I mean, my husband changed CLT building policy on fireproofing with a letter from a lawyer. He had to take the hit, but other people are building CLT buildings there now and don't need to because of what he did. So you're a leader. Sorry, you gotta do that.
So people would like us to talk a little bit more about how much they cost, although some people have helpfully put examples in the chat, and about whatever grant programs are available, which I know are limited right now, or we're waiting to hear. But anyway, there's that question about examples of what it would cost, and I think it's quite a range.
Yeah, it's quite a range. I mean, if you think about it, like Mitsubishi and Fujitsu, Bosch, they are the Cadillac version. So you're going to pay more. And they are proven. They're proven technology. They're, you know, they're durable. They've got a track record. And some of the newer brands don't have a track record, but they're less expensive. So it's really up to the homeowner to determine what the cost will be. So on the lower unknown brands, you can get away with, you know, 10 to 12,000. On the higher level brands, you're talking more like 14 to 20,000. And of course, it depends on the size of the system. So we can't just blanket this with one cost. What's the square footage of your house? What's the air volume of your house? What's the heat loss of your house? So a leaky house will take a, 4-ton heat pump. But if you take the same size house and you have an amazing building envelope with, our 40 walls and no air leakage, you'll get away with half the size, if not less. So it's very hard to say this is what's it going to cost you. There's a range. But don't forget, if your furnace breaks and you replace it with a heat pump, then you don't have to replace your air conditioner. So remember, you're replacing 2 different systems with one system. So you have to consider that if you had to buy a new furnace and a new air conditioner, you'd come closer to the total price of a heat pump. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, there's a couple of other things here. Oh, one was, you mentioned the cost savings for electrical and for propane. Where does cost savings for natural gas fit into that range? Do you know?
Yeah, I did a lot of research on that because I was worried that that would come up. And it truly depends on which province you live in. So for instance, in the West, where there's a lot of natural gas, they're a supplier of natural gas. The cost is less for natural gas. And so they're on par, like using natural gas and getting a heat pump's pretty well equal. But in the East Coast, let's say, or even in Ontario, the cost of gas is higher than in the West. So you save money using a heat pump in these provinces in the East.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'll just fill in that piece about the grant program. People were asking about the Greener Homes grant programs that and loan that some of us have taken advantage of has been at least temporarily paused by Enbridge, who was contracted by the federal government to provide it. So it's only been temporarily paused in Ontario. And it's not likely to start up again in the same form. Although we're being told there will be something. We don't know what it would be.
Exactly.
People who are already on it get to complete it, but if you haven't had your first assessment, and it's not scheduled already, then it's on pause.
Yes. Yes, it is. But I will tell you this, you can still get an energy audit for your home, even though you're not going to use it to apply for rebates. And I heard that the City of Toronto within the next 2 years is going to require an energy audit in order for you to sell your home, which is what is standard in Europe. And in Europe, they add the clause you can't even rent your home without an energy audit because it's not fair to the tenant to have huge utility bills that they aren't aware of. And that's causing energy poverty. So they're trying to reduce energy poverty by making the owners of the home responsible about it being energy efficient. So you can still do an energy audit. You can figure out how to get your envelope in better shape, reduce the need for a larger size heat pump system, and then get the savings of using a heat pump without an incentive. Still a good thing to do. Yeah.
And I guess I would mention there is for low income families in Ontario now a program that says at least that it will provide heat pumps for free if you qualify. So that's worth looking into. The income cutoff depends upon how many people live in your household, and the name that you can look up is Save on Energy. So
There's also an oil to heat pump affordability program run by the federal government. Again, it's tied to your income. but they will give you $5,000 toward a heat pump, and you just have to prove you've gone through 1,000 liters of oil, so they know you've had your oil for a considerable amount of time.
Okay, and was just one more note about the grant program. How much was available under the original Greener Homes grant depended upon the kind of heat pump the number of heads you got or the kind of heat pump you got. So it could have been anywhere from what, 2,000 to 5,000, is that right?
Yeah, and the requirement was that you had if you went with mini splits, the requirement was that you had one on each floor of the home.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And then different amounts if you had 3 heads instead of 2. And so really, it was a thing you had to look up and figure out. And yes, people are saying still waiting for the money, even though it was improved a couple of months ago. I personally think that's one of the reasons that Enbridge probably put a pause on, is for whatever reason, they were not keeping up with the payments. And so taking more on was going to be even more difficult. That's just my guess, nothing official being said. Right now, I'm going to say Sue McKenzie would like to, and I'm just going to invite you, Sue, to unmute, and would like to tell people about the neighbors electrifying group, just in case anyone's interested.
Oh,
So just
I
about
wanna
a minute or so, Sue, if you can do that, that would be great.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Okay, all right. Yeah, this group started about, Climate Action Muskoka started it about, maybe 7 months ago. And we're just a really loose-knit group of people who were interested in sharing information on how we're going about electrifying our homes. It's a very low-key group. We meet in each other's homes once a month. And we hope to have a meeting soon this month. And we basically show what we've got, what we've done. We talk about the problems we've run into, how to solve things. We're there for each other. And there's no pressure. Like there's people in the group who they're at the very first stages. They're starting to electrify their tools. Right up to other people in the group who've done the induction stoves and the heat pumps and the solar panels, and they're a great resource as well. And we did have someone come and talk about solar panels at one of the meetings. So it's just really nice to get around to each other's homes and to be able to see the possibilities and the different types of homes and so forth. And so it's neighbors helping neighbors. That's the whole idea. And we hope that by doing that and by opening that group. So please, if you're interested in that kind of low key sort of information sharing, please contact us at climateactionmuskoka@gmail.com, and we'll be in touch. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Arlie, a note we talked about earlier that we might canvass or survey hands up on people wanting additional webinars to learn things like what was just mentioned, electrifying or building envelopes or solar panels or domestic hot water tanks or I don't know, all kinds of things. Is there,
Yeah, we could do that. A couple of things. If you have an idea of a topic you would like a webinar on, such as one of the ones that Audrey's mentioned, just type it, not a long story, just a couple of words in the chat, because we will download the chat and therefore we will get the full list of anybody who makes a suggestion. We're gonna ask for a show of hands by doing if you look at, in your Zoom controls, you can find a raise hand either by looking at reactions or just you'll see the choice to click on raise hand, and then that will give us a count of the number of people who would be interested in future webinars on this kind of thing.
Oh, I see lots of hands up.
Lots of hands up, right?
Wow, that's great.
So,
Exciting.
okay, and I'm seeing someone says a webinar on solar. And we have an invitation to visit. You have a look in the in the chat for that address if somebody's interested. So 19 people have raised their hands. It's a good number to get started with.
Wonderful.
And any suggestions for topics, please put them in the chat. So we kind of, I've seen the one for solar. If maybe that's the next step.
I really do think we need to do building envelope and air leakage.
Yeah, right. This is
I
the one,
really
the
do.
one that Audrey wants to do. Who all would be interested in one on improving your building envelope and air leakage and so forth.
You almost have to.
Good turnout on that too. Yes,
Yeah.
19 people there.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Audrey, you were saying that we were chatting earlier that that is almost the first step, is it
Yes.
not?
It really is. And what we should do is sort of back up a step from heat pumps and talk about, your journey to an energy efficient house and what is your first step, second step, third step, so on and so on. Just like your electrification, you need to do it in stages because one impacts the other. And if you do your heat pump ahead of your building envelope, you're actually going to overspend on your heat pump. And then you're going to feel like it doesn't work, which isn't fair, really. So, yeah, there's a definite process.
So we have some other good suggestions in the chat. We'll leave that for a couple of minutes so that people, if they think of something else, can add it. It's now 8 o'clock. I don't know, we certainly leave it open for a few minutes anyway.
Okay. Well, I do have to run.
That's great. Thank you very much, Audrey. I
You're
can certainly tell there's been lots of information and interest. People can, will receive a link to the video, not right away because Paul's going to clean it up for us. And then, and Audrey has supplied her deck, they call it.
I'll send you the deck.
We can, Sue, can you tell us what is Climate Action Muskoka's general email?
I'm heading out. Thanks, guys. Nice
Okay, thanks a lot.
meeting you all. I'm very proud of your electrification group as well. Woo! Go for it. Bye-bye.
Did I lose Sue? Oh, no, there's Sue.
I'm muted. Oh, there we go.
There you go.
Oh, our general email is climateactionmuskoka, all one word, @gmail.com.
Okay, so
And we also have a website, climateactionmuskoka.org, which is kept up to date by Lynn Ring. There's new stuff there practically daily, certainly weekly. And you can also sign up for our newsletter on the website.
okay, that's great. And if you have any further ideas of webinars that you would like Climate Action Muskoka to along these lines with Audrey or with another expert, if it's not something she's expert on, by all means send it along to the climateactionmuskoka@gmail.com and we'll see what we can do.